Hello, I'm Dr. Basil Considine. I'm here from the ACU Online Writing Center, and today we're going to be talking about SWOT analysis. If you're not familiar with this, this is a scheme for doing organizational or project analysis to assess what the current conditions are, what the advantages are, and a few other things. And so we're going to be looking at this today through the lens of an assignment from our Healthcare Administration program. Now, if you're not familiar with the Writing Center, we work with students in just about all of ACU's online programs. You can come to webinars such as this. You can make use of resources we prepared, like sample papers, course paper templates, dissertation templates, and responses to common questions. And you can also schedule appointments to get feedback on your writing. If you have just a quick question about something, is this the right formatting for a citation? Just send us an email. But if you'd like feedback on a draft, anything that would take more than, say, 10 minutes to answer, go ahead and sign up for an appointment, and we'll be happy to help you. Appointments come in two general types: real-time appointments, where you are having a conversation, and asynchronous appointments, where we look at your paper, take into account any special requests you've made, and then send you feedback. Now, for a real-time appointment, you're getting your feedback in real time. For an asynchronous appointment, you sign up for a time. By the time your appointment rolls around, you upload a copy of your paper and any special requests that you have for feedback, and then we look at that and send you feedback generally within 24 hours. If it's, say, an appointment for Monday morning, we'll aim to get our feedback to you by early afternoon so that you have time to look at it and integrate that feedback before you have to submit your paper. If you have a big deadline that you're working towards, then you might want to make more than one appointment, and then you can always cancel the second appointment if you don't actually need it. All right, with that, I just want to call your attention to our program-specific webinar guide. This is on our Writing Webinars page. If you scroll down past the calendar, you can select a program like HCAD, and that will show you all the webinars that tie in directly with that program and its assignments. And they'll be sorted by first the course number, like you can see HCAD 201 at the bottom of the screen, and then after that by the week of the course that the assignment is coming from. First on our list, we'll be looking at what SWOT analysis is. Then we're going to specifically look at this assignment from HCAD 624 that requires you to do a SWOT analysis. And then we'll talk about a couple steps on the process for outlining and drafting this assignment. So what is SWOT analysis? Well, first of all, it's a way of breaking down the characteristics of an organization, a project, an endeavor, sometimes oneself. Yes, you can do a SWOT analysis about an individual. And so we start with the strengths, that's the S. Contrast that with the weaknesses, the W. The opportunities, the things where there's room to grow, where there are benefits from improvements or areas where you can expand, perhaps, and then the threats. So with these four things, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, altogether we have a systematic approach for how to assess the characteristics of a person or organization, with the goal of doing an honest assessment to decide what should we do next. Because you might decide, okay, we need more strengths. Or you might decide, okay, we should address some of those weaknesses. For example, if you had a piece of equipment that was near the end of its life, that would be something you might want to work on so that you don't have a business interruption when it fails or goes down for repairs. Opportunities. Are there markets that you're expanding into? Are there untapped demographics? Are there resources that you are applying for or pursuing? Markets. Opportunities. Threats. Do you have competitors? Are there changes in values? Many things could go into this. But again, altogether, it's a way of assessing a person or organization and saying, okay, here's where we are, and based on that assessment, what do we want to do next? And so having this four-way division of enumerating the characteristics of the organization is a way to have a basis for saying, okay, how do these add up? And if we look at an example of a published SWOT analysis, we can say, okay, this one here has, okay, the strengths. We offer specialized procedures. No other facilities in the state can do this. Our physical layout is great for patient care. We have good operational efficiency and high patient satisfaction. Now, weaknesses, we could see we have low satisfaction scores for employees and high employee turnover. Definitely, there's a big cost there. That is a significant weakness. The equipment is older. We have the patient length of stay being higher than average or longer than average. And that's something to keep an eye on because it can have some effects on reimbursements if patients are not doing well and we're not improving those things. And it's only operating at 75% capacity. Now, you might sometimes have something located in more than one area because something can be a strength and an opportunity, for example. So although operating at 75% capacity is not ideal from a business perspective, you might look at it and say, okay, well, we have the opportunity to grow. And perhaps your competitors don't have that capacity. And so that's something that you could potentially make a strength for marketing, perhaps, or increase the utilization of the equipment. Now, we've looked at the opportunities. Here they have market other doctors who don't use the facility to get more referrals, to increase patient awareness about the services offered. Again, going back to the weaknesses, that could be a, hey, you can come here and we can see you faster or sooner, or you'll get out faster because we could devote more resources to you. And we have a growth opportunity. Again, this could be listed as a weakness. Not all of our nurses are nurse anesthesists. But you could say, all right, as they have done here, but that's something where we could do that. And threats, in this case, they have, okay, competition from 3 other hospitals with similar procedures. Other hospitals are also looking to add things that will increase their competition, and there's a loss of revenue from out-of-network patients. Now, the summary is a good thing to do, even if your assignment doesn't specifically require it. Let's look and see, okay, well, do we have a lot? Are they significant? Are some outweighing it? And in this case, we have strengths are highly unique compared to other hospitals in the region and are a differentiator when patients are looking for this procedure. Weaknesses, well, there's an opportunity to eliminate patient flow bottlenecks by having better trained doctors and staff. Great. And despite current profits, the revenue could be higher with strategic improvements. So that's both a weakness and an opportunity, as we discussed earlier. And here's another example of a SWOT analysis. And if you're wondering about the visual layout, well, this particular assignment doesn't require that you follow APA formatting or indeed use a very specific visual layout. One of the reasons why this particular one with the strengths and weaknesses at the top and opportunities and threats below them, why that's very popular is because you can compare the strengths and weaknesses very easily because you just look a little bit to the left, look to the right, and you can arrange things in this list so that the bullets line up with related things. And by the way, if you are a little bit lost at sea with how to describe your specific organization, there are lots of SWOT analyses that are available online. Some of them even published in journals, but many just on websites. So if you search for SWOT analysis and something about your place of employment, your organization, you can find many examples. Now, I mentioned that the 2x2 is very popular. Now, here is a different way of doing a SWOT analysis, where we have columns for each category for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then they have organized the entries here in terms of themes, some of which have multiple parts, because increasing access, as you can see, is broken into multiple rows here. And so they're describing specific things related to that, and there may be some things that will complicate or interfere, and by putting those on the same row, it's a little bit easier to see all the things related together. So you can see that first row for increasing access, we have, this campus provides access to this online. Here's something about the weaknesses with that. Well, in general, the state isn't at or above the national average. But opportunity, it's expected to go up. And then the threats. So this is a way of organizing similar information together. Same idea from what I was talking about, having parallel bullets in this one, but cutting across more. So if you find you're doing a lot of cross comparison in a very granular, a very specific, detailed analysis rather than big picture, this is a very helpful format for that. So let's take a look at what HCAD 624 asks you to do for this particular SWOT analysis. So this is coming from the Health Services Administration and Leadership course from week 3. And it's specifically asking that you conduct a SWOT analysis for your organization using the example in Appendix 8.2 of the course textbook. Now, we have an example analysis in there, and so by template it means more in the thing you can copy sense, rather than here's a blank template ready for you to fill your items in. And after you've done the analysis, you're asked to select one initiative that you feel could improve the quality of care, to discuss that in detail. That's the identify bullet. And making sure to provide data that supports this, because we want to have informed decisions and recommendations. And then there are 2 deliverables from that, from these analytical steps here. The first is to put together a 2-page executive summary. Because this does not require AP format, often people write it in the form of a white paper or a letter to management, like an open letter kind of thing. And you can pick who the audience is. I just recommend that you identify it so it's clear why you're including or not including certain details. And we have this list of things that are required to be there. It's not the entirety of what you might put in there, but some things that you really should have. Okay, what are you proposing? Give us a little background. What's the data that supports this? What exactly are you suggesting? And so on and so forth. And then once you've prepared your executive summary, you want to look at that information and see how would you package that into a 6 to 10 slide PowerPoint presentation that includes the analysis. Now, how much overlap there is between the executive summary and the PowerPoint presentation? Usually a lot. My experience looking at student drafts is that usually there is a great deal. Now, do they always have the full table in the 2-page executive summary? Usually not, because that is a little bit short on space, only being 2 pages. But with a PowerPoint presentation, you can include things that you don't discuss all the details of, but that you have there to be ready to answer questions and for your attendees to be able to do some application or think about those other things. So while you don't want to have distracting details, you can have an additional level prepped for follow-up where for your attendees who get a copy of the slide deck to do more follow-up. Now, if we look at the rubric for this assignment, we see, okay, the presentation should highlight the selected initiative, the proposed improvement, and the associated data, and summarize your SWOT analysis. So if you use a table format for your SWOT analysis, yeah, I'd put that on a slide. Now, for the initiative, proposed improvement, and associated data, we can see here, those are all things that are listed here on the set of elements that should be in your executive summary. So that's it. Once you've written the executive summary, you will have some material that you can put into at least the first version of your slide, and then you'll want to go through and adapt them for the presentation. So, what it might be full sentences might be shortened to bullet points, for example. Now, if we look at the 3rd row, when it's talking about the assignment, the executive summary, that is listing all of the things that are in bullets here. So make sure you get all of them. Be ashamed to lose some points there. And key thing, something that people sometimes miss, is the last line is saying you should include detailed speaker notes on each slide. And that those notes, along with the rest of the presentation, should follow basic writing standards. So make sure to do a spelling and grammar check, read it out loud to catch any easy errors or things that don't quite sound right. And also, make sure that you have other things to talk about besides just explicitly what is on the slides. Now, often there'll be more information than you can cover in the allotted time or the allotted number of slides. So often people will have details from the executive summary and they'll put them in the notes with something like, oh, if we have more time, or in case of questions, so that they have that there. And that's fine. But keep in mind that usually for a presentation, the guideline is 1 to 2 minutes per slide. And so there's a limited amount of information that you can convey in 15 to 20 minutes. So you don't want to have pages and pages per slide, but a list of things to refer to, which of your sources you got the information on that slide from, and you can have a short version on the slide itself, and then a longer version in the notes. And overall, you want to make sure that the presentation is something that, if you were giving one to the powers that be at your organization, what would interest them, what would be helpful to give them, and what level do you want to have in your writing? What is appropriate for this group? Are they going to be expert practitioners in this area? Are they going to be more from business or management backgrounds? When you determine those details, that will help you calibrate the phrasing that you use. Now, in terms of outlining and drafting, I do want to recommend using the APA course paper template, even though you're not required to have the paper be in APA style. Having the rest of the stuff, the cover page, the references page, and so forth, it's a good way to keep that visual consistency, and it's a matter of seconds to download. And I do also recommend, if you are not very familiar with, if not very practiced with doing PowerPoint presentations, to watch our Recording a PowerPoint Presentation webinar. Now, the main reference that you'll be using, you can bring in other ones, but the main reference is going to be the course textbook. And you can always check how to cite sources by looking at the APA Style Central website. This is the online partner to the APA manual. And for the course textbook, if we look at the syllabus, we have this information. Now, we've got some extra stuff. For example, the ISBN number at the end of the first line. We don't include the ISBN number in APA 7th edition. Same thing with the available through the ACU library stuff. Now, that noticing is available through the ACU library is very handy when you're a student, because oh, I don't need to go out and buy this. However, it's not something that should be in the references entry in APA style. So if we look at this, it's more that some information has been deleted rather than anything being added. So we see that the ISBN number is removed, and the available through the ACU library is removed, and those little bullet signs. And if we're going to cite it, done 2021 in these different variations. And that brings us to a close. So this has been a targeted webinar where we talked about the basic elements of SWOT analysis. We looked at how to apply those in assignment, different ways that you can consider organizing your analysis itself. And we talked about some of the concerns with writing this up and reading the rubric to make sure that you get all of the credit for the work that you did, including making sure you've got those speaker notes on the slide, not forgetting citations and reference. By the way, the references usually end up on a separate slide at the end of the presentation. And with that, I think it's time for us to bring it to a close. So thanks for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your lunch.